Hello everyone, my name is Zach Templeman and I do directing, producing, writing and editing. The idea I want to show you all today is a short film called Shadow, which is a drama and a thriller combined which takes place in the late 1940s and is set at two locations, a jazz bar and a bunker. And the project is going to be roughly about 10 minutes long, probably a bit longer. And the chosen logline for the project is 4 years after World War II, a young soldier who experienced a tragic past must accept his fate by a mysterious woman who walks into the bar. So let's talk about the major plot points of the film. So the backstory is set at night and the bar is closed. The protagonist will be playing the piano but in a very slow pace, and he has two items at the side of him. A shot glass with whiskey, but it will be a apple juice, and then a postcard with a note written, "We will be together soon." The central character is called Michael Clark, who is the young soldier who survived the events of World War II. And now he's working at this jazz bar and he wears a tuxedo suit, but then after one night he decides to stay up after his late night shift. But then due to his tuxedo being unbuttoned and his bow tie being untied will reflect his characterisation later on in the story. So the inciting incident is that the mysterious woman finally walks into a bar with a notepad ready, writing everything down, and this will explain later on in the story of why she's doing it. And then she witnesses Michael of what he's playing, and then what she does afterwards, she seduces him in her own speech, in her own seductive way. So the conflict will involve the protagonist and the antagonist, who experience similar pasts with each other, who have lost a loved one very close to their hearts. So the obstacles is that the protagonist will probably know about the antagonist's intentions, so then he has to go through what the antagonist has to say, and that means he's putting his life at risk, and he'll do no matter what, and hopefully to resolve the situation. The climax is where the antagonist finally realises of what's happened in the story, and then she finally decides to kill herself, putting the protagonist in massive shock. And the resolution is that what happened to the protagonist in the past, what the situation he cannot resolve, and then he realises that he cannot resolve it, so he decides to commit suicide, and this leaves both the antagonist and the protagonist on the floor, and that makes the situation like it never happened. So let's take a look at the film. So the film, I really want to film it in black and white, because I think this will involve a more outstanding characters, more visualising lighting, and the overall style, which will make the story more bold and unique, and then puts a bit more in depth towards that genre of era storytelling. And as you can see here, the jazz bar will be the main location for the film, and then the bunker section will be the flashback scenes of the film, which will probably be filmed in the studio. So, as with any filmmaker, there will be challenges involved, and the three biggest challenges I will have to face during this project are the props, the casting, and the funding. So the props wise is that the props, unfortunately, to want to get the film as realistic as possible, there will be some realistic props, but due to health and safety regulations, I will need to double check with my tutors to make sure they are appropriate and safe to use. Unfortunately, if not, we'll probably have to use dummy versions, and then we have to use the art department to cover up anything that looks anything like plastic or anything that looks odd colours, and then hopefully they can go from there. The casting wise, there will be a young girl involved in the flashback sequence, so we'll just have to be very careful over the casting opportunities. So we have to make sure if she's available at that time, if she's free at that time, and make sure she's appropriate at that time to make sure she's safe as well. So we'll have to go through the casting director to make sure these rules are safe as well. And then my final challenge, which wouldn't be the biggest challenge for me, is the fundraising. So I don't mind investing my own money into the project, but for any reason there is a situation where I have to do it, I can always use Indiegogo, an online funding website, and as well as Kickstarter with a similar setup. Or if not, I can always promote my project inside uni, and then hopefully the fundraising will go towards the art departments and mainly the costumes as well. So why is this great for the Manchester Film School and the college? Well, I think of the project as three main aspects. It's topical, it's creative, and it's experimental. The topical wise is that we need to make sure that it's all about survival, and it's all about mainly about a bit of post-trauma as well, especially for the main protagonist. The creative side is that I want to make sure that each aspect of the film, especially the colour of the film and the setup of the film, especially the shots, all look near identical to the film of the 1940s, and hopefully to replicate what the films did back then into the modern day. And for the experimental wise is that I want to at least give each member of the department a task which hopefully they can use as the skills towards after the film and they can use towards the future. So I'm trying to give at least a bit of a challenge to everyone within the film crew. So why am I so passionate about this film? For instance, I just love black and white films. I mean, it's the ultimate art form, and I think it's probably the greatest art form for filmmakers, especially if they want to create something in black and white in the future. If they want to create a black and white film, even though they are restricted to what they can do, if they manage to master within that situation, they can master it with any type of film they can imagine possible, including like colour, different types of cameras, etc. And then it also goes to the audience as well, because I want the characters to feel alive, I want them to stand out, and with the black and white formula they will stand out even more due to the script and the story set in that era. So let's have a recap of the theme of the story. So it's a young soldier who has suffered a tragic past, who now comes in conflict with this mysterious woman who's always very suspicious about the protagonist, and then their conflicts will involve a much darker story which will then give out a shocking revelation towards the end of the story. And that's it for my presentation, ladies and gentlemen, so thanks very much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I'm open to some questions now. So and what I've got my mum who's sitting over there, and she's kindly to ask me some questions. So have you got a first question for me?
Zach, why have you chosen the 1940s era for this film?
So the reason why I've chosen the 1940s is because after World War II, maybe people thought it would have been saved, due to the victorious of the Allies, but behind the scenes, I think it was one of the darkest periods of the era, especially even though it was called the Golden Era, especially after World War II. But I just think when it comes to like some of the corners within like cities of everything, I think it was one of the darkest moments, because the 50s was coming towards like the fashion, the 60s was coming towards like the more modernish era, but the 40s still had a bit of the dark aspects even though after World War II, so that's why I've chosen the 1940s. It sets the tone of the story pretty well, and that's why I think these characters, what they've gone through, it will explain the story a bit more rather than the later decades.
Okay, thank you. The second question, how did you come up with the idea for this story?
So I came up with the idea for this story because it's obviously due to like some of the films I've watched in the past. So one of my main influences for this film is Casablanca, due to its black and white and due to like it's filmed in a bar, even though it's more of a love story and a romance story, but this is one of my main inspirations as well. So that's why I've chosen the reason as well, because I think it exploits a lot of especially a lot of family members of what they've gone through, especially even though the soldier part is not the soldier is the main character of the story, but the antagonist and the side character, they would have gone through a lot more, and that's why it gives them more of a tone of a story, and that's why I went for that part.
Okay, thank you. And the third and final question is, why have you filmed this film in black and white and not colour?
So obviously when you look at some of the films, especially newer films like say Schindler's List, even though that was released in 1993, the director Steven Spielberg decided to put that in black and white, even though there was some certain scenes in colour. But I think it just sets the tone of the story because, you know, due to its era, 1940s, films were set at that time that all of them were black and white as well, especially the noir ones because it was its art style. And plus, well, there was only two aspects of the people in there, the light side involved the light, and then the people who had the dark side when involved like the dark colours of the film. Because if you use it in colour, it would have distracted the entire like pace of the film as well, and it wouldn't give that impact feel to the audience. So that's the reason why I filmed in black and white, because due to it's respectful to the era, and I think it will lighten the characters up in that era as well.
Thank you, Zach.
Okay, so thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.